Good afternoon, Atlanta. You're listening to WGEC Network. I WCEG Talk Radio. We're live streaming. You can watch us live on Smart TV, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. And it is time again today for another episode of Veterans Today. I am your co-host, Herman Anderson. My other co-host is Anthony Aiken. Let me finish reading our disclaimer, then we will move on. We are the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. We speak live in the community. Last but not least, our disclaimer is the topics and opinion of the show host and the guests are not WCEG Network. They are, thank you for your support. I am Herman Anderson. My other co-host is Mr. Anthony Aiken, retired Colonel Anthony Aiken. My brother, how are you?
Man, it's so good to be alive, Herman, and so good to see you again. And I want to thank Ms. Greer, our project leader there, and making sure that we're online, and also send a shout out to our listeners around the world, just to let you know that every 2 weeks we're here because we want to speak truth into the community. So Herman, today we're going to have a very exciting guest, a guest that's willing to share his knowledge on what is important for veterans and their families to know about getting what they've earned, their benefits and compensations from the Veterans Administration. So with that being stated, bro, I tell you, again, it's so good to see you.
Well, thank you. And as we do on this show from time to time, we select a current event that is happening during the month. And this is Veterans Today. I'm a veteran, you're a veteran, our host, Vivian is a veteran, our speaker is a veteran. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is just read a little short bit of information about the Vietnam War. And the Vietnam War ended on March 29th, 1973. And on March, the Vietnam War place in our national history is remembered March 29th as a day when most schools and workplaces will stay open, and our observers are typically not among those of our warfare generation. We are the generation, and the American Legion know the significance of the National Vietnam War Veteran Day, which is March 29th, which has been observed since 2017 when President Trump signed the Vietnam War Veteran Recognition Act. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the last U.S. combat troop departed from Vietnam, closing the curtain on a long and complicated time in our world history. That's just a little bit of history of Vietnam. And March 29th is National Vietnam Veteran Recognition Day.
Yeah, Herman, that is great information because even though that war ended in 1973, we are still having veterans in that age category where they're still struggling. They're still struggling with Agent Orange issues. They're still struggling with mental health issues. They're still struggling with getting the compensation and benefits from the VA. So that's why our show is so important, that we want to give them hope.
You're exactly right. And it leads into our guest, we have, which talk about Veteran Service Organization and the details of applying for the benefits that we earn, like you mentioned, Agent Orange, PTSD, heart disease, and about 14 different, more than 14, about 16 different ailments that are possibly a result of the Vietnam, participating in the Vietnam War.
Sure, like you and me back in the early 70s when everything we were doing was training ourselves to go to Vietnam. We had no idea. We were just doing the call of the nation. And what did that entail? We didn't know. but we showed up and we performed. And now that we showed up and performed, it is upon the government to give us that blank check and sign it so we can actually utilize it because of the issues that we're still dealing with, to this day. Suicides are up. Refusal of great service at the VA, is up. And recently I experienced one of those experiences. And I'll share some of that with you and our listeners today because, again, we speak truth into the community. We want to let them know what's going on and what we should do as veterans to correct it. Those individuals that work in the VA work for our benefit. They have their jobs because of us. So when things need to be on the forefront for accountability and we see it, we need to let the individuals in power and leadership to know what those deficiencies are.
Well, I totally agree. And me and you both, we keep up with current events and we let our listeners know. And two things that I've noticed, with the passage of the PAC Act, the number of requests for service from the VA with claims and just with service has increased. It actually,
big time.
VA is not equipped to respond to it.
Nope. And it kind of leads into a situation, and I'm going to be very factual with you. As you know, I'm legally blind and I haven't driven a car since 2013. So when I have issues, or state that I have issues with my vision is real. So about 2 weeks ago, I had to go to the VA to be serviced. And because they were understaffed, I literally was there almost 7 hours. 7 hours before really being seen or diagnosed. And then when I was actually seen, the staff wasn't sure on what they needed to do with the equipment, which resulted in another delay. So you go to another group of physicians and they're not quite sure of what needs to be done. So from a Friday night at 11 p.m. all the way to Tuesday, I dealt with a health issue that was not being satisfied until I met the surgeon that did the work for me originally 12 years ago. So I'm going to sit down and write a letter to that leadership because they need to know. I understand staff shortages and all that. I totally understand that. COVID changed a lot of things. But for those that are there, they need to have a PERT chart to understand what that means to veterans, because veterans have become very frustrated and who knows what could happen. We've already seen the suicides of individuals killing themselves at the VA.
Well, that is correct. And as we've been doing this show, what you say always leads into something that happened. For example, our friend Reverend McGee was in Tucker yesterday with the mayor of Tucker at a suicide meeting, and that's Reverend McGee very well. And one of his points is in a meeting minutes that he sent out last night that I look forward to, is leads into there are over 700,000 veterans in Georgia, and we need to let our political leaders know how veterans are not being treated up to standards that we expect.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And the turnover is so prevalent now that even the healthcare providers, if they feel as though that the stress level is high because those that are working there, they're working double and triple times because the staff level is low. So they have a lot of turnover. And as a result, it's just like a veteran going back to square one to start over with a new provider that you can develop trust with to share your health information to get the jobs done that they needed. So again, that's a real story. I hope that our VA here in Atlanta would do their very best, just like all the other VAs around the country, the very best to provide the services to help veterans and their families, especially in an emergency scenario. My vision situation was an emergency scenario. but I ended up being there almost 7 hours, more than 7 hours to be treated. And then when I did have the services rendered, it wasn't adequate, with prolonging three additional days. And that's just not right.
That's not right at all to you and to all veterans. And I saw a current event just this week where someone I don't remember the person's name, but in the VA system, actually is considering reducing the requirements. If you above a certain level, you don't qualify to get benefit from the VA, and that's an action item for veterans also.
Yeah, definitely an action item, man. So, Herman, you said you had something else you wanted to share with our listeners. We always know about the DD Form 214, which is important. But right now, suicide, what else do you have going on right now? Our listeners need to know.
Well, one thing that I have going on that our listeners need to know is about veterans benefits, and the VA is seen to be at least making themselves available.
Yeah.
And there's in tomorrow in McDonald, there's a veteran clinic. Here's the announcement. All veterans and their spouses are invited to a Vietnam administration hosted VA Disability Claims Clinic this Saturday, March 25th, 2023 at 10 a.m. at Shiloh Baptist Church Family Life Center Gymnasium. And the address is 262 Macon Street, McDowell, Georgia. The VA representative will be providing a briefing, answer all VA claim questions, assist veterans with their claim status, assist veterans on filling out claims. This event is open to the public. And like I say, it's provided by Shiloh Baptist Church Veteran Ministry. And if you want to contact someone there, the number is 678-464-0680.
Good information, man. You know, those veteran ministries are tremendous. So we would hope that as many churches throughout the city of Atlanta, throughout the state of Georgia, and throughout the country would organize a veterans ministry that veterans can come together and share stories, and also bring in individuals from different organizations like the VA and others to help them understand the process of going through to get their benefits and compensations, but also to let them know what the hospital side that can provide to their families and loved ones. So that's very important. I know every time that we go to the VA, my queen and I, we always observe something different. There's change.
That's ever since we've been doing this, and since I've been doing claims, it's very important to make the veterans aware that there's the claim and benefit side, and there's the hospital, and actually there's the barrier side of it. So it's really three divisions.
Correct. So, hey, I noticed that our guest is, I guess, in the chat room, getting ready to be let in. So we're excited to have Jeremy Walker join us today, and I know we're going to press him.
Exactly. We're waiting on his expertise.
Oh yeah, man, we got to wait on that expertise so we can share it with them. So with our guests. So can you hear us, Mr. Walker?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we can't see you though. Hey, I know you need to show your handsome self. So there you go. There you go. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, gentlemen?
Very good.
Listen, we're doing well.
There's my good partner, my double good partner, my military veteran, and my friend, brother Herman Anderson. Herman, as our guest, Mr. Walker.
Good afternoon, Mr. Walker. How are you?
I'm great, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I have a veteran organization that we have been in existence over 10 years, and our number one goal is helping veterans understand their benefits and get their entitlements. And VA, Veteran Service Officer, is I'm always ready to ask you all to pick your brain.
Okay.
Herman, yeah, that's great because when talking to him this morning, he said, Colonel Aiken, I want you to know that I'm a great advisor. I provide great advice to our veterans. So before doing that, I told him that we had to put him on a pedestal because he needs to tell us a little bit about who he is and, well, you know, that kind of thing. So our listeners would know about Mr. Walker. So, sir, it's on you right now to tell us about yourself.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Like Anthony said, I'm Jeremy Walker. I was born and raised in Georgetown, South Carolina. You know, he's a fellow South Carolinian himself, Charleston. So I enlisted in the Army National Guard when I was 16, and I did the split out program 2 years before I even graduated high school. Then after graduation, I decided I'd go active duty, starting off as a field artilleryman, and then I completed like 22 and a half years of service for this great nation. So I retired as an intelligence officer here at Fort Gillem, doing the senior geospatial instructor. I did the drones. I put the drones in the military in Arizona. Then they brought me here to create a training program. And then I decided I'd retire, you know, when everything was good, it's time to go, you know, spend time with the family and so forth. And immediately upon retirement, I bought a house here in Noonan, but now I'm in Marietta, using my VA loan. Didn't understand the process, really got a kind of run around with that and so forth. And I wish I had somebody to help me out. So that started my journey on this path. And then simultaneously, I took a job up in Virginia doing government contracting. So back and forth for about 10 months, decided that wasn't going to work. And then I decided to come home and I was going to stay here in Georgia. Upon doing that, started off in different programs. I wanted to go to school. I decided I was going to be an AAU basketball coach. And I ran into a bunch of different veterans as I was coaching, talking about similar problems that you guys were talking about earlier, as well as what I was going through. My transition was nowhere close to being easy. And in fact, I learned a lot of things pretty much being baptized by fire, just going through it and walking through the process. At that time, I wanted to go back to school. So I wound up talking to a veteran service officer here in Noonan, or in Noonan at the time, which was Barbara Serrano. She was a retired Army Master Sergeant. Her husband was a retired Sergeant Major, and they both were VSOs in LaGrange and Noonan. So as soon as I got out, I went straight to them, and they were just showing me love, like, hey, this is what you need to know, you know, outside of what the VA is going to do, just be prepared because you're going for a culture shock. And so as I began to navigate my educational route, I went to American Intercontinental University up in Perimeter. First time I decided I was going to attend college, I wanted to go for an MBA, and I went through voc rehab. Well, let's just say the briefing went well, but the process was not exactly what it was supposed to be. I still wound up doing great in school. They advised me to do accelerated programs, so I got my MBA in a year and a half. Did great in the school, thought it was great, thought it was amazing, the opportunities and the people that I met. And that's where I met Attorney Shannon Wilson, who was one of my professors at the time. And I was telling her, you know, I struggle with PTSD. I'm a combat vet. I sat in a certain place in the class, and there were certain things that I didn't get from my retirement process that I needed to get done. So I went on with her to do my estate plan and my will and so forth. And this is normal for us as we deploy out throughout the military. You know, I've been through Iraq, I've been to Afghanistan, and it was just like that was part of the process. You just do it, get it done, and get it over with. Well, she told me in detail so much more about what the estate plan does and how it impacts my legacy, what I was actually leaving for my kids and so forth. And then we went on from there. At that time, after I got done with the MBA program, my sister was getting ready to deploy. I decided I would keep my nephews. That'd be an opportunity to, you know, chill out a little bit more and learn a little bit more about the VA. And I joined the master's program through this university out in California online. Come to find out they were a military-friendly school. So nobody knew about that. And it was just like, hey, they had an MBA program that I can do in 300, they had a master's program that I can do in 364 days. That went well with the op tempo. I was keeping my nephews, and then we were, you know, navigating COVID as it went. But I still was trying to figure out what the process was with me as a retiree and going on with the VA. Well, steady go to Miss Serrano, steady talk to different veterans, steady work the system. And I was denied my master's program through the VA. Okay, no problem. You know, just like us military guys, we're going to figure it out, right? So I go and get student loans. I got student loans to do the program, got a 4.0 in it, knocked it out in 364 days instead of 365 days. And then there was a corporation called Nelnet, which controls all the student loans for the United States. Well, I called up. I need to talk to somebody. I'm a veteran. I did this, so forth. They switched me over to the military branch department. And come to find out, I didn't even know that existed. Well, my student loans were completely forgiven because I was a disabled veteran going through a master's program. And afterwards, it was just like, well, you know what? We perish for a lack of knowledge. That's one of my favorite quotes out of the Bible. So this community that I found, other veterans outside of that, outside of the education program, it went on to transition into sell my house. I wanted to move, you know, I'm moving on in life and so forth, trying to get jobs. So I wanted to sell my house, and I found Adam Murdoch, who is in Homes for Heroes. Go figure. Homes for Heroes. I was like, really? What is that? They have an office right there on Dobbins Air Force Base. And me and him spoke about it. He's a former Marine, and he does real estate. Well, he sold my house for me. He said, hey, in this program, you know, when you sell your house, normally people turn around and they give the realtor like 6% or whatever cases. In this program, we give you half of that back. So not only did I sell my house, make a profit, but that program actually gave me part of my money back. And I was just like, I'm amazed for that. This is really crazy. Moving forward on that, Wounded Warrior program. Went to Leslie Marmalejos, who's an awesome advisor. She was just like, hey, whatever you need, we're going to do this. I said, I need some rest and relaxation. They sent me on what was called an Odyssey, going to Florida for a whole week, got a chance to relax, get back to earth. Life was good. And then they started helping with me with the job assistant program. Now under the VA, you know, you hear about your benefits and your education and so forth. They're supposed to help you get a job. Well, that system is not as accurate as it could be. It puts the veteran in an awkward position, especially when you're getting out and you don't really know how to navigate the system on the outside world. Now, you put me back in the Army, I can tell you any and everything you want to get done. But when
Mr.
you
Walker,
yes, sir.
we would like to see your face. Somehow you dropped off. If you can.
Oh, I'm back.
There
Sorry
you
about
go.
that. Yeah. So to continue that, sorry about that. To put me back in that space, I knew everything I was doing, but as far as the job market, that didn't work. So now I'm moving on into other different programs. There was an initiative called 4Block, which is a 10-week nonprofit for transitioning people like myself. You know, I got a master's degree. I got into top secret clearance, and I'm thinking, it's been a while. I can't get a job. What's going on? They partner with corporate partners here in Atlanta. So here I am. I get a chance to get in front of Delta, Home Depot. Actually, they get to see Jeremy Walker versus a resume and so forth. And I get to connect with their veterans within the association that, you know, we partner up in LinkedIn. And now they're talking me through the process of how to get a job through their organization. And that's beautiful.
That's where you are now on
No,
your
sir.
journey.
No, sir. I'm still on the journey. It never stops. That's why I said I have a plethora of information for you guys. So after 4Block, you know, I've always been into personal training, and you know, the first thing we're introduced to in the military is working out. We go to basic training, we get smoked, we get big, and you know, you can survive your jobs. So there was another veteran, Matt Hess, who has a program called FitOps, the University of Health and Performance. Out there, you go out there for 3 weeks. It's not a basic training environment, but it's similar to that. And you get with other veterans like yourself, and you learn to become a personal trainer. And you get back to mindfulness, and you get back to, even with me having a broke neck or being a combat vet and being blown up and shot at a couple of times, you finally go back to a place where you first began. And now you get to open up and transition a different way. So mind, body, and soul, Jeremy Walker went back to 16-year-old Jeremy before the military, the guy that started it off, and before all the pre-war stuff that was going on in my life, and then tackling the VA. So I got grounded again. Beautiful aspect. Even after that, still couldn't find where I wanted to go. So I found another program called Onward to Opportunity. I've done project management my whole military career. We all have. Well, under the University of Syracuse, there's a free veteran program called Onward to Opportunity. And that led me to go in the route that I'm currently in, which is working on my project management certification as Scrum Master. And now you have people like yourself. There's another organization called Vetlanta, where there's Mr. Lloyd Knight. He's a retired Air Force Master Sergeant. And then there's John W. Phillips, who's a retired Army Colonel that got like 10,000 veterans doing the same thing that you're doing, Mr. Herman. Like they got the VA actually coming out to their events with computers, sitting down with the veterans saying, look, you're not 100%. Why are you not 100%? And let's talk more about what's going on with your situation.
Yeah, let me just speak a minute about Vetlanta. Actually went to their very first meeting when they started it. So they do a great job. And I think, we all have our different lanes. And what you just went through is there are, I tell people because there are organizations that specialize in certain things. They do it better than anybody. And I think that Atlanta does a great job with transitioning in job careers. And that's in Lloyd Knight. I mean, he let people know that he's not really dealing with disability claims and all of that.
Yes, sir.
I tell you what, I'm just sitting here mesmerized with the knowledge that you're putting out to our listeners. And I'm going to ask you to do a little homework.
Yes, sir.
And the homework is for you to send to us in writing about these different programs so we can post it on our Facebook page in regards to FitOps and Honor the Opportunity and the Odyssey program, all those kind of things with points of contacts. So after the show, we can share it. Because there are certain things you stated also that just were key to me.
Yes, sir.
Perish for the lack of knowledge. You providing us that knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Want to share that knowledge. The other thing, you still got that military mindset. Up-tempo. This is an up-tempo show.
Yes,
we
sir.
want to make sure that we keep that knowledge forefront. And what you stated so far, I'm like, trying to do my blind man handwriting as much as I could possibly see, because, the information you imparted about the VA benefits and things that affected you, but these organizations were upfront on how they wanted to help you. So it's important that we have that information about the corporate partners and Honor the Opportunity and Vet Atlanta and FitOps, because that needs to be shared.
So here's the thing with that, Anthony, it's the other way around. Like it's my personality. I'm 400 miles per hour. So there was a lot of these organizations that were out there just like now. I've sat in on webinars and so forth, searching for the information. And that's what killed me, because I was like, I got out the military after serving 22 and a half years, and it was not provided in the transition course.
No.
It was not provided by somebody I knew. Most of my neighbors, none of them were military. And I didn't know individuals like yourself. So I just kept going and meeting different people and like, hey, can I talk to you about this and so forth? So the reason I want to give back so much is because just like talking to you on the phone, well, I pass this information out because I go and seek it. Again, we seek it and then we turn around and we pass it on. So knowledge is just not for you to gain it and keep it to yourself. No, you turn it into wisdom by sharing it with others and making it actionable. So this is where I was like, I would love to talk to you guys and say, hey, the VSO, somebody had told me what a VSO was. And I was like, what does that even mean? Yeah. Well, come to find out, she's my best friend now. And like, hey, Jeremy, you're 100% disabled. You weren't supposed to pay taxes on your house. You got a VA loan and I paid, the VA funding fee. Well, again, when you're dealing with civilians, and we make up 1%, veteran population make up 1% of this society. The military as a whole make up 3%, but you're talking 7 billion people on the planet. That community is so small, we should be networking with one another and learning. But the problem is you don't have people that come out and say, let me tell you, versus, well, this new acronym that I got to learn after learning 40,000 in 20 years. You know what I'm saying? That it doesn't make sense. So I'm glad to be here today so we can share that. And I have I think, a list about 200 different organizations from out every program I've been in that I could share with you guys.
Please do that.
Okay.
Knowledge is power, and what you do with that knowledge is key and essential. So again, that's the up tempo that Jeremy Walker brings to us. That's the up tempo that we're going to take and put on our Facebook page and share it, because Herman and I both agree, even if just one veteran pick it up, it's a success. So we got to keep that up tempo going, keep pushing the information forward, and hopefully that population of those that are uninformed will become informed so they can get the things that they need, because there's money out there. There are programs out there, but you need to have that drive and initiative to get it done. And we've always said there's some knuckleheads out there that don't want to listen.
Yes.
Whatever reason, there's some knuckleheads that, I'm not going to deal with it. Well, that's fine. But for those that are not knuckleheads that want to do something, that's what we want to do to help them.
But
Well,
it's just like you said earlier. The VA is hard to navigate. So you have so many people that have moved forward and try to put claims and then they got denied. It's the verbiage. And that's where the 38 CFR comes in. Or you have medical providers, thanks to Obama in 2016, he revamped the VA. Well, you got a lot of interns now that's in the VA. So you need to understand what your environment is walking in there. So you don't just go in there and say, I got a headache. No, you got a migraine. And if you've been having a migraine, you need to say, I got a migraine to where I go to sleep. Words have meaning. Well, that's the difference between 20% and 50% just in that rating alone.
Understand the rules of engagement.
Yes, sir.
And the rules of engagement to get it done.
Well, that is true. And Anthony can tell you, and I can tell you, we've been doing this show 7 years. My organization's been in 10 years. And we get results. It might be because since we've been doing this show, we had people that we know that was at zero because Anthony called them a knucklehead. They went and got 100%. It's more than one. Our goal is to motivate and push as many people as possible to get the benefits that we have all earned and deserved.
I'm amazed, just like you and Herman, at the number of veterans you talk to that are just not knowledgeable. They don't even know where their DD Form 214 is located.
Yes.
They have no idea that there's an Agent Orange database that they can possibly get into. They don't understand all the illnesses associated with Agent Orange. They don't even understand the issues associated with PTSD, sleep apnea, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. There's so many things that a veteran can go and have himself or herself checked out about to get the compensation. And let's not forget about the females. They have a whole new set of issues in regards to what we deal with as men. So again, we need to continue to push forward, share the information, the male and females, that they can share with their families. And if they can't get it done, maybe a family member can help them navigate getting started with the VA system. So it takes that first step.
And I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because I ran into a bunch of older veterans, Vietnam veteran. I came in right before the Gulf War kicked off and it was just like, it was beautiful. But a lot of Vietnam veterans were not given a lot of the benefits. And I've talked to several different, like you said, the female population. Well, you have the Sexual Trauma Act that came out in 2018 that went along just along with PTSD. Well, what does that even mean? Sexual Trauma Act. What goes along with that and so forth. But you have a whole generation, like I said, basically from the Vietnam era, that didn't even get a chance to do that because Congress pushed that in 2018. So how are we going to get this information out other than just the radio show? Is the VA going to say, hey, I use the census? Let's be real. You have a census that shows everybody that's a veteran in each state. There's a VSO in each county in the state of Georgia. I learned that just by talking to another VSO and was like, why do you even exist? And she said, it's my job to take care of veterans, but there's one. If she never told me that, I wouldn't be able to share that with you or share it with other veterans. And that's a key disconnect in order for us to get what we need.
Yeah, that is a key disconnect. And that's unfortunate. It's
Well,
really.
let me do two things. Number one, I want to make sure that I have you connect. So
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna let the listeners know, which I've done in the past, who my organization is, how to contact my organization, and any contact information that you want to provide on Ash Fine. Otherwise, I will be in contact with you. Uh, so, number one, my organization is Veterans Helping Veterans, headquartered Atlanta, ATL. My mailing address is P.O. Box 961563, Riverdale, Georgia 30274. P.O. Box 961563, Riverdale, Georgia 3074. And two telephone numbers. The first one is 404-996-3970. The other one is 470-377-1917. My email is bbhv3105@gmail.com. So I want to let our listeners know that. Please contact us and we will respond, I guarantee you.
Yeah. Just to let you know too, I also have a nonprofit called Visually Impaired Veterans of America, and I'll share that information with you soon. Viva will have a podcast, and the podcast will be geared towards making sure that veterans like myself are involved with certain aspects of the VA that can help them. It's going to be centered on their visual acuities, visual blindness, the whole sphere of what I've experienced and how we can help them go through that VA system. So what we try to do is to make sure that the resources that are out there, they know about. I see men and women who are visually impaired that is not as successful because they haven't gone through the training that I've gone through as a result of being a veteran going through the VA system. So like Herman with, his organization, Viva, we try to do the same thing. So there'll be an announcement soon about this podcast kicking off. But going back to some of the things that you do, have you run into any resistance from many veterans trying for you to help them, or are they pretty open?
No, most of my opportunities come from speaking engagements like this, or being able to talk to different ones and so forth, or through referral. I've sat down pretty much in the process of looking for a job, teaching other veterans what's going on by being talked to by Miss Serrano and her husband. And she was just like, hey, we got to get out here and help each other. One team, one fight. She's still Army mindset too. But there are a couple of guys that say, hey, man, I tried to do this and it didn't work, or I got denied this and so forth. And I was just like, okay, tell me how you say it. Let's just have a general conversation. And this is where I do advisement versus VSO. The VSO lives strictly off of the 38 CFR, which is the guidelines and everything for what we're supposed to do. Well, how the VA conducts themselves and how they give ratings. Well, if you look at it, everything that you've been denied on the denial letter, it tells you specifically in the 38 CFR how to go back and navigate it so you can go back and appeal it. Well, if it's verbiage that's missing, if it's how you were saying you felt that day, if you came in and say, I feel okay, but then you tell them your leg was broke or you're suffering from PTSD, that's a contradiction. So now you're putting this medical advisor in a state like you just came in the door and said, I feel okay. Well, that's what they're going to go with. And now that's what you're going to wind up getting. No, if there's something wrong with you, let's get past the egos and let's get past the stigma of what we normally do as veterans. We run a PT test, you sprain your ankle, what do? You go get Motrin and you just keep on going. Well, that's why we're in the situation we're in now, because a lot of us, we don't know how to communicate that we're hurt. We've been just programmed to drive on and suck it up. And then when you go to the VA and do the same thing, when you say that, That's where you get these minimal ratings. And then on the other side, it's like, well, you know what? I tried and I failed. That feels, we're not used to disappointing ourselves. You want to try and you want to get the best results. And this is why I think the VA needs to get educated, talking to more veterans and having guys, especially their counselors. I've had a mental health provider, honestly, that laughed at me because I had PTSD. And I was like, dude, I've been blown up and shot at 19 times in 1 year in Afghanistan, and you're laughing at me. He was gone as soon as I could, soon as I could get out the door. But it took me 6 more years of going through different counselors and starting over and telling my story and so forth. And I was like, you know what that does to an individual?
Sure.
You talk about the 22 suicide a day veterans situation we got going on. Well, it's more than that, because if you look at what's considered a veteran, if you got a dishonorable discharge, a lot of people are not calling them veterans. A lot of homeless people who got out that didn't get a DD 214, you got kicked out. Guess what? They don't consider them veterans, but they're part of the suicide number. They're not part of the suicide numbers. So I believe it's a lot more than that. And if we start communicating like we're doing now, and we work on the quality of life, we get your ratings up. Some people need medicine. Well, if you're less than 50%, you don't get the meds.
Well,
That's crazy.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't try not to miss any opportunity. Advisement. So how can I get in contact with you, have you come speak to my organization?
Just give me a phone call right after this if you want.
Okay. I'll get it. If you don't want to put your number, I'll get it.
No, I'll put it out. I'll put it out. I have no problem with that. So my number is 770-502-5847.
What we'd like you to do also, after this show is over, it's going to be on YouTube Live, Facebook. Please share it with your network, because that's what we do. We share this information with our network, and individuals can go back later on and view this show, because the information that you provided us today has just been invaluable. Totally.
So let me make sure I got 770-502-58. We lost him again.
Mr. Walker?
Mr. Walker.
Mr. Walker? Okay. Until he comes back on, Herman, we'll make sure that information is imparted to you and your organization. And we can post it on our Facebook page also, information on how to reach him and for him to reach us, that kind of thing. So far, man, he has provided us a lot of good information. I still like a lot of his military jargon, up-tempo and rules of engagement and things of that nature to help our listeners who are still in that military mindset understand the value of the information he's been providing, because it's important.
I think he's great. And I think in my opinion, he's younger than we are. And we need that generation involved with the emotion and with the attitude that he had.
We run into a lot of veterans, like he said, that doesn't have that up tempo like he does. We're in our 70s now, so sometimes we need to be motivated or push forward or whatever. So we hope that our listeners who are in our age category, who are Vietnam veterans, who are veterans of other campaigns, to know that if you start with that first step, and that first step is to go to VA and get your medical evaluation done, and then start the paperwork along with it. It may be tedious, it may be arduous, but that's okay. We've done that in the military. We know how to see it through. So we continue on to get the thing we done. Say, he's back. He's back. He's back.
Yeah, the internet's been acting crazy all day. So I'm just like, yeah.
What I was pointing out, my generation, because I'm a Vietnam era vet, I'm in my high 70s. So we need your generation and your attitude, your enthusiasm to keep this stuff going, and I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And that's part of my plan in the future. I actually want to build a veteran center that focuses on helping the homeless veterans with tiny houses. We got a physical training and so forth that gets like the things I went through at FitOps. And then I want to do what's called a vet van, which is for people like in your generation. You know, I sat here and listened to Anthony say earlier, he's going blind, so he can't travel as much. But what if you had say we had a vehicle that can come out to you and your family, give you a class. You know, I've heard so many older veterans say, well, they've been denied access to their DD 214 and they had to wait in certain places to get this information. No, you can go on e-benefits and get that. But again, your generation is not as computer savvy as mine. I'm not as computer savvy as my son.
Correct.
So if you had that capability, and not just for you, but for the family members. I met a elderly lady. She was taking care of her husband. He was in the Air Force for like 30 years. She was only 10 years younger than her, and she was going blind. And now both of them need to take care of each other. But their daughter was taking care of them and didn't even know that she could, you know, she could be qualified as a healthcare giver.
Correct.
And she was like, I'm paying all this money. Me and my husband are having marital problems. And that's how it initially started for me was, again, we perish for a lack of knowledge. This woman had been taking care of her parents, and it put a strain on her and her family financially for almost 15 years. Well, she could have been getting paid for that and so forth. And she came to the VSO office and sat there for like 30 minutes to try to figure out how to get a DD 214 to file something with the VA. And I was like, let me show you on your phone how to get into e-benefits. And she started crying, and it just broke my heart because it was just like, it was something that simple. But with all of us, that's pretty much how we operate. We're very simple-minded. We don't like this complicated, you know, animal called a VA. But once we learn to navigate it, it'll become a lot easier. So
Let me make 2 points on that. Anthony and I know from our generation that that's a big deal. In my organization, we are 80% of us are Vietnam era veterans, and our technology skills is not what the lower generation are. And so we've all been through the situation you described. Is you don't know how quickly you can get a DD 214. People definitely don't like e-benefits.
yes,
And one benefit that a lot of Vietnam veterans don't know about is aid and attendance. That's a lot of people that could be helped is not, because we've had people at least twice on this program to talk about aid and attendance. And I got a call yesterday about aid and attendance from someone that's my generation. And
Yeah. I'm actually going through that process right now. Been denied more than once, you know, and we're now going through the appeal process again because certain information, like you said, you have to tell your story. Certain information was not provided or not picked up by the VA evaluator. So my wife and I had actually just talked about this last night. I'm resubmitting on Monday to go through that process because caregiving is not easy.
no,
You know, I'm a knucklehead. I know that. I call others knucklehead, but I know I'm a knucklehead because of my military background and you know, that kind of thing. And it's not easy. And it's not easy on my spouse because of the things that she has to deal with me. And I mean, there are a lot of things she had to curtail that she wanted to do, but because of my limitations, she had to change her way of doing things to help me. So she should be compensated
yes,
like others, because I've gone to caregivers conferences and I would say 85% in the room were females taking care of veterans. And they were stressed out.
yes,
They didn't know where to turn, who to talk to, what resources were available. So we need to extend ourselves to our better half, to our family members, to those individuals that are helping you, because what you had to go through serving our nations, now on our nation, now it's coming on the back end, which is affecting the family. It's a tragic story to hear that taking care of parents almost broke up this young lady's marriage.
yes,
You know what I mean? That's tragic.
yes,
And we need to do what we can to stop those kinds of scenarios from happening. Support the caregivers through the aid and attendance program. unfortunately, a lot of us who apply, we're just viewed as numbers.
Yes.
Your last four, or your social security number. And they're dealing with individuals countrywide. So we need to make sure that we tell our story well enough to get the attention per the CFRs or whatever it is to be compensated.
Yes, sir. And then that's the thing. It's like just like being in the military. I'm a senior non-commissioned officer, retired. Everything is in black and white. So again, if you don't know the CFR exists, you can start looking up your ailments. You can be more specific. With a friend of mine, she's a retired Sergeant First Class out of the Army. She does VA home grants. She's a realtor. Nyla Allen. She was like, "Hey, did you know I sold my house in Noonan, 2-story, beautiful home, first house I ever had. I got shrapnel in my right leg. So I can't go up and down the stairs to my master bedroom. I fell down the stairs and so forth. So I sold my house. I was forced to do it." You wouldn't think you would hear that from a 45-year-old man, but it's like, hey, in dog years, field artillery, I'm probably 60 years old with all the injuries and stuff I got. Well, there's a program out there that has $132,000 to help me build a home. There's $35,000 out there to adapt the home that you're currently in if you have wheelchairs and so forth. All of that information came from me talking to people, but where is it being shared? So that's been my whole thing with making sure we get that out there. And then guess what? Hey, I'm gonna call a VSO. If I don't know it, I'm gonna call a VSO. And a lot of them now, it used to be 2 per station, and then it used to be 1 station per county. You'll see that there's only 1 VSO, and they'll say email me and so forth. Well, people in your generation don't have a lot of emails. You know what I'm saying? So now it's like, okay, I'll be a conduit for you and I'll send the email. And typically they respond to you within 24 hours. But like you said, if you have an emergency right now, this is what causes you to stress out. This is what causes sometimes suicide and so forth, causes stresses on the family. And this is where I would like to definitely try to make my mark on the world. So if I can do that for you guys, I'd love to do that.
Okay.
I like your bunny attitude.
Say what?
I like-
What, Anthony?
I like that bunny attitude. You're charged up, and
Okay.
we need individuals like you.
I got the news about this time before we run out. Number one, when you speak of VSO, let me ask you, you're talking about state VSO, right? So there are DAV VSOs and American Legion VSOs. So you're talking about the state of Georgia or South Carolina VSOs. Is that correct?
For overall, I've dealt with different ones. Like you said, the DAV, you do have the VFW, which I thought the VFW was a motorcycle club, but come to find out they actually do have VSOs. You have Vetlanta that's pushing it now and so forth. So when I say VSOs, that's a whole nother animal in itself because the only thing that we know is.
That's what I need to want to clarify. It's another bag of worms. But
yes, sir.
State VSO is like I said, there's one in each county, and then Georgia
Yes,
got I even know the number. So, but I've been dealing with this ever since I started. But the best, I'm trying to make it straight down the road, is a VSO in. I live in Cobb County, it's like VSO in Cobb County. Then, so that was one point. The other one is all this stuff that we're talking about in the last hour. Do you have a presentation that's about 30 minutes long that we package, or can you help me package one to present to organizations?
I can help you package one because typically what I do is, speaking to younger generation, if you go veteran service officer near me, Google it and put in your zip code, it'll show you. But like you said, there's a need for the generation prior to me in the Vietnam era. So this is what makes it a little bit more difficult. But if you call me and say, hey, Jeremy, I need to find out who my VSO is, I can tell you who the state VSO is over the phone because I just Google it for you.
Yeah.
But again, I can definitely try to do that for you because it would make things so much better. And if we can partner with a veteran service officer in each organization, that would make it a lot easier too, because now you got 4 or 5 different eyes that can tell you from their experience, like, hey, this is how you navigate the system, and then create one product that we can continuously pass out to everybody when they initially get started.
Okay. Well, I can actually make that happen in 4 organizations, so we can talk about that.
So, Jeremy,
And,
before we leave, put out your name and your phone number and your email, just like Herman mentioned earlier, but we need to make sure that's the last thing on our listeners' minds and how to reach out to you.
Yes, sir. And it's Jeremy Walker. My number is 770-502-5847. Again, Jeremy Walker, 770-502-5847. And if anybody reaches out through your organizations, then you guys can send them to me, or we can talk about it and try to move from there.
you will be hearing from me. Okay.
Hey, I look forward to it.
That's good news. And I'm excited because I got a fellow South Carolinian online, a Geechee boy like myself, that can empower the knowledge to our folks that have served our country with integrity, with honor. And here you are, veteran, still with shrapnel in your body, in an area where you're blown up, but it did not kill your desire to reach back and support others from your experiences. So we salute you.
Salute you guys.
Let me just tell you, I'm as my buddy used to say, Lewis Jackson, that helped me start this organization. I'm a country boy from South Georgia. I grew up in Dublin. I went to Savannah State. So, so that's just Anthony is my son.
I'll tell you what, it's just been a joy, Mr. Walker. We really appreciate you. Please send us that list of the organizations we were talking about.
Yes, sir.
Make sure that our listeners get it, because we don't want this to go away.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that this thing's out there, that they could get the information they need to get the help they need for themselves and the family. We still run into veterans. I ran into a Korean War veteran that never went through the VA system. He was 91 years old and didn't know anything about the VA system. Just think about the thousands of dollars that he lost.
Yeah.
Not only for himself, but it's for his family.
But that's the other population that we have to deal with. Like you said, prior to like the Gulf War, nobody knew about the VA. A lot of veterans got out, and that was just it. It was like, I'm done DD 214, and that's it. So that's the other side of it too, is we need to educate that era, saying, look, you didn't get this, or you didn't that. You guys painted ships with lead-based paint. And under the PACT Act, now there are so many different things because of where you were stationed. Even certain jobs actually qualify you now for disability. So again, that system, we really have to get on it. So,
well, Anthony, can you do our closing as you usually do?
Again?
Can you do our closing?
Yes, I would love to do it. Again, Mr. Walker, thank you. And all of this, everything that we're dealing with here, started as a mustard seed by our leader, our queen, our kahuna, Miss Penny Rogers. And as a result of that, we now have what's called the WCEG Network, where we have other hosts providing truthful information to the community. We also like to give a shout out to Ms. Vivian Greer, veteran, who makes sure that we're tight and make sure that we're tight to provide a good viewing and a good show for our listeners. So again, the WCEG Network, the WCEG family, salute you and thank you. And we thank our leadership for their guidance as we continue to put knowledge and truth into our community. So again, sir, we salute you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to our audience, have a good weekend. And Anthony and myself will be back in 2 weeks with another great guest.
Thank you very much, sir.
all right. You guys have a great one.
Appreciate you.